Universities, institutions of higher learning, of sharing of ideas, of critical and progressive thinking. Or so we thought. It seems, good students, that we have been deceived by the faculty of our beloved learning centers, who have undermined the entire premise of expanding the mind and opening the doors to new frontiers in technological, medicinal, and societal advancements. Be not deceived by promises of intellectual growth, for the universities have been systematically hindering the very mechanisms you, good academics, utilize for learning and memory. We've planted spies on the inside, posing as regular students, and there's one thing that's clear. Universities don't want you to learn. Student spies have exposed the nefarious machinations festering inside the very belly of our once proud institutions. While leading you to believe that they are stimulating and challenging your brain, the faculty are in fact waging a covert war by storming the gateway to memory itself, the hippocampus. The glorious hippocampus is a unique but important structure in the brain, located in the medial temporal lobe and is part of the limbic system, which plays a major role in information processing and the modulation and consolidation of declarative memory. Some would go so far as to argue, no hippocampus, no new memories. While there is still some debate as to the exact nature of the involvement of the hippocampus in memory encoding and retrieval, there are some significant aspects that have been observed. The first is the ability of the hippocampus to generate new neurons, even in the adult brain, a feat which is not accomplished in most other structures, and certainly not to the same degree as in the hippocampus. This ability to grow new neurons and adapt existing neurons is called neurogenesis. Along the same vein, the hippocampus is highly plastic, which means that new synapses can constantly be formed and connections can be reshaped. Neuroplasticity has been studied in rats, primates, and humans. Early studies in rats show that between 3 and 10,000 new neurons proliferate in the hippocampus every day. While it was once believed that we developed all of the neurons we would use early in life, recent studies have shown that young adult rats produce up to 10,000 new neurons daily, and that amount is expected to be similar or greater in humans. Interestingly, studies also show that approximately 60% of newly proliferated neurons will die within weeks. Some studies have, however, noted a decrease in cell deaths among cells that were born during a period of learning, and the more challenging the material or task, the more cell retention is observed. Seeing as the hippocampus is such an important structure in memory, it's no wonder that the sinister forces behind the war on learning would take whatever measures necessary to prevent it from functioning properly. Of course, the institutions must maintain appearances, so they must be discreet. What if they could exploit something so commonplace you wouldn't even know you were under attack until the damage was already done? And the secret weapon? Stress. Consider your own experiences as a student. Or if you're some kind of super student, consider then the average student. Nearly all will report having suffered stress. Grades, scholarships, minimum required volunteer hours, group projects, finances, magic syllabi that have deadlines that pop out of nowhere with a week's notice or less, demanding social obligations, assignments that aren't worth very much but require a disproportionate of time to complete, multiple midterms on the same day. These stressors are all the hallmarks of nearly every university student experience. And what for? Stress is a combination of adaptive, physiological, and behavioral responses to aversive stimuli in the environment. Acute stress is experienced when there is the perception of imminent threat to life and results in a sudden activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which releases epinephrine into the body, preparing it for physical fight or flight. A slower response to stress, often associated with chronic or daily stressors, is expressed by the release of glucocorticoids. For short periods, glucocorticoids can enhance cognitive function by suppressing competitive functions and concentrating resources such as glucose to areas of the brain and body necessary for survival. Normally, the hippocampal feedback loop will deactivate this response. However, too much stress has been shown to damage the hippocampus and in such decrease its effectiveness in shutting down the stress response. It's a vicious cycle. This damage also induces deregulation of neurogenesis, preventing new cells from proliferating, most notably in the dentate gyrus. Chronic stress could decrease the likelihood of survival in cells that began proliferation around the onset of the stress response. What is more, it has been suggested that stress may negatively impact neurogenesis by causing arrest of the cell cycle. This could have implication for the long-term effects on learning, as neurogenesis would be less prevalent over time. Just imagine the impact this could have over 4 years of university. Studies also revealed that the constant bombardment of stressors can lead to dendritic atrophy in CA3 pyramidal neurons in the hippocampus, which in some studies has been linked to attenuation of long-term potentiation. LTP, and consequently memory impairments. Given the research, one can see how the university would be diabolic to use stress to halt this process as well as hinder neurogenesis. But inducing stress is not the only weapon the enemies of learning have up their sleeves. Another side of the multifaceted war machine is sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation and low-quality disturbed sleep have been identified as having particularly detrimental effects on the hippocampus. Context and spatial memory are especially sensitive to sleep. The hippocampus has been shown to be continually active during sleep and is likely continuing the process of memory consolidation. Forcing students to stay up all night, cramming for their midterms, would thus ensure that no knowledge is retained. If you're still not convinced, consider the impacts of sleep or lack thereof on brain mass. Lack of sleep has been correlated with a decreased brain mass, which is the putative result of dendritic atrophy and reduced neurogenesis. It sounds like science fiction, but it's science fact. By depriving you of sleep, the university is trying to shrink your brain. The final piece in this sinister trifecta is alcohol. Campus-sponsored festivities such as mixers, wine and cheese socials, theme parties, and of course the big guns, Frosh Week, are all encouraged by the university. If you're still not convinced, consider the ridiculously cheap nightly discounts at the campus pub. The university is clearly pulling all the stops to send you home loaded. Don't fall into this nefarious trap. Most students have had their own first-hand experiences with alcohol-related amnesia, either themselves or through a friend. Ethanol, what your body metabolizes when you consume alcohol, is considered a psychoactive drug. It is a non-competitive antagonist against the NMDA receptor, which blocks the influx of glutamate during an action potential. Consequently, the mechanisms for LTP are crippled. While most students don't schedule their study time to coincide with party time anyway, the institution has carefully designed traps to prevent them from learning, even the next day. By encouraging the consumption of copious levels of alcohol via $2 and $3 drinks, in combination with irresistible gimmicks, such as theme nights or live music, the institution sees to it that you will still be metabolizing that brain-melting ethanol well into that next day. And they're not getting you in just the short term either. Behavioral studies have shown that low doses of alcohol on a daily basis impairs spatial memory, which is directly linked to the hippocampus. Chronic consumption of alcohol at a low dose has also been associated with up to a 40% reduction of neurogenesis over several weeks. While abstention has been shown to reverse these effects in some cases, studies in recovered alcoholics have revealed that long-term use can lead to permanent cognitive and memory impairments. Drinkers who started consuming alcohol regularly during adolescence showed the worst impairment. The obvious conclusion is that the institution aims to cripple future great thinkers by pickling the minds of vulnerable students. And so, as our spies have confirmed, the lure of alcohol, the chronic stress, and sleep deprivation make up the three-pronged attack on your hippocampus, and consequently, your ability to learn. It seems daunting, it may feel hopeless, but you must not give in. There are ways you can protect yourself from the sinister trifecta. Stressed? Take a break. Do something new. Get some exercise. Have a cuddle. Just stir it up a little. Tired? Take a nap. Even a short one will do. And if Professor Goodtimes invites you to the third kegger this week, just say no. Keep your wits about you, and you just might survive university having actually learned something.